Welcome to another episode of Beyond Sunday, where we keep it real with faith and life, because as you all know, life be life. And I'm actually going to say this early. Go ahead, like, share, subscribe, and share all of this information out, because I'm telling you, what we're going to be talking about today, we probably will go in, and I mean in, because we've been going in off camera, but I actually want to go in on camera. All right, so we not having no reserves. Ain't nobody holding nothing back. I'm just saying it early, because if anybody tries to hold back, then I may just be like, nah, we can't do that. Anyway, but as you all know, we do this all the time with Pastor Thomas, and we also have Philip Brown here. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. We are talking about dating life, dating culture. I'm gonna try to go in. I'm gonna try to go in. Let's see how deep we're gonna go. So I'm gonna just jump right into it. Do you think God really picks your person? It don't matter. Whoever jumps out there first.
I think, for one, we all have an opportunity to choose. We all have a choice. I would say, I don't think that there's just one particular person for anyone. I think you have a choice, and that person can change, and you can also change.
So you don't think that your wife was picked by God?
No, I think my wife was, but I don't think that it's like okay, well, hey, we're gonna take Tylen Brown or Tylen Guidry at the time and Philip Brown, and whenever they hit a certain age, they're going to become married. I just don't think that's the case. Okay. I think, we all have a choice. You might meet someone else and maybe it doesn't work out, or we all have a choice.
So then if I understand it, then by that logic, that would mean that if I don't choose the person that God has for me, then I married the wrong person?
Are you asking me or are you asking him?
No, I'm just walking.
Just in general.
Just in general. That logic out. Doesn't that mean that I married the wrong person? That I'm with the wrong person potentially?
I mean that could be true, right? But I mean, I guess so. Like, let's ask this other question, right? So if I'm like my type, right? I got a type. Not me personally. I don't really have a type, but I'm just saying a person says they have a type. So I'm a man. So my type is, dark skin, taller than me. I meet this woman, and when I meet this woman, I say that this woman was sent to me by God because that's my type. But what if it ain't? Like, what if is that true? Like, just because I have a type?
Well, I think what we may be attracted to doesn't necessarily mean that's what's healthy for us. Like that person or that type of person is healthy for us. So we may find that we have more attraction to or maybe even have some chemistry with that person, but that doesn't mean that person is the healthy choice for us.
So then does God send us our person? Or is the person who shows up the person that we are just compatible with, and then God blesses that?
See, I think that God gives us wisdom and discernment to be able to know that when we meet people, if we are in relationship with people, whether or not those individuals would be an ideal partner for us. I think we have the freedom to choose, and I think God gives us enough wisdom and discernment to be able to recognize that this person would be compatible for us as a lifelong partner. I don't know if I don't subscribe to the idea that there's a singular person that is out of billions of people that you meet that is the one, and all other people are not the right person, because then that would mean that a person potentially marries the wrong person. Like you're saying, oh, God didn't send that person, and then, oh, well, I married the wrong person, therefore, hey, I can get out of this relationship because that's on me.
So then love at first sight is not a thing for you?
Love at first sight. What kind of love would that be?
I don't know. I'm just saying listen, when I was coming up, like that was the thing. Like, and I don't know if Disney created it or not, but I'm just saying love at first sight was like, oh my gosh. It was like love at first sight when we met, and we just had to be together forever.
I mean, infatuation can be there. I think you can have a strong connection maybe. I've heard people talk about having a strong connection with the person when they first met them, and they knew that there was something about them. They wanted to get to know them. They just felt like that person was going to be somebody that they would be with for a while. This concept of or idea of love at first sight, I'm not sure I know what that means.
That's something that society created. Just like butterflies, like, oh, you have to have butterflies. That's whenever you know that you're in love. Like, I don't believe that. Not everybody has, and maybe that's a generational thing. But this newer generation is, oh, when I saw her, I had butterflies. And, if you don't have butterflies, then she's not the one. Like, I've heard that several times.
Aren't you semi part of the newer generation?
I am, but I told you.
He's speaking from experience.
Yeah,
I mean, he was kind of saying it like he's not a part of this. I'm
like
just
I
saying.
know a lot of people that are like, hey, you know, if she doesn't fit kind of that criteria that you said, like if she's not a certain height or maybe her hair color is a certain.
Got you. Okay.
You know, and it's different. If I don't have that attraction and I don't have those butterflies, then she's not the one for me.
So it was kind of like what we were talking about when I was talking about Pop the Balloon and the young dudes now. Some of them dudes be like 30 something and 40 something. They still be saying that, but they be like, yeah, I just didn't feel a spark when she came out. Like that's what you're referring to then.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like society just created. I can
agree
what
to that.
spark are you looking for? Like it's just
I can agree to that.
everybody's different.
Now I'll say this though, I think butterflies are real. I think the butterflies are like the nervousness that you get just being, speaking with the person though. Like, if you see a fine girl and you be like, man, I really want to talk to her, and you talk to her.
Let me go back to the spark for a moment. Like you didn't feel they were saying they didn't feel a spark.
Yeah.
I mean, that may not be a positive thing though, because a spark can set my whole life on fire. Like you might be ready to blow my life up.
I mean, depending on the mindset of dating today, you may be absolutely right because this world of dating is interesting.
So I think you bring up something interesting about the idea of type, right? So does that mean that we idolize type too much in our society? That
Yes.
the person has to fit a particular mold?
Yes.
And if they don't fit that particular mold, then we push that person to the side. However, that person may really be the right
one
type
for
of
you.
person
Yeah.
to be a part of my life too.
So I see that happen all the time. So these are things that I think about when I'm sitting at home, in my lonesome, really just being with myself. So I'll go back to this pop the balloon thing, right? So like there'll be plenty of people, guys and girls, who will pop on certain people, right? And they'll be like, yeah, that's not usually my type. But I'm sitting back like, but you're on the dating show, and more than likely, most of the time you dated your type. So obviously your type doesn't work for you. So then why do you keep trying to go and find your type in these situations? You should probably look outside of your type, right? And then the other thing I'm always looking at is most of the people that like people put in the friend zone are probably the best people for you, but you pass them up because they're not your type.
You bring up a powerful point about relationships, like long-term relationships. Long-term relationships, especially romantic relationships, it's not the spark, it's not the chemistry, it's not the attractiveness. Scientifically, what we know is really the friendship, like how strong of a friendship the couple has. The stronger the friendship, generally, the longer the relationship will last, because they both will turn towards each other in times of difficulty. They both will be supportive of each other. They both have influence in each other's lives. And so the strong basis is really the friendship. It's not how often we date. It's not how romantic we are. It's not how frequent we're intimate. It really has a lot to do with that foundation as being the base, because the communication is better. The ability to resolve conflict is better when the friendship is stronger.
No, I absolutely agree. Because most of the time when you're like friends with somebody, they know you, right? If I'm friends with a person and they've really gotten to know the ins and outs of me, right? And then I randomly, haphazardly meet someone and I'm saying I want to date this person, it becomes difficult to date the person that you don't know versus the person that actually knows who you are. So I truly believe that dating your friend, I don't think is a bad thing, and they should be your friend first. I mean, that's kind of how I see it.
I do wonder though, in today's environment, because I know that dating can a lot of times begin like virtually through dating apps and stuff like that. If we trust the algorithm too much, if there's too much trust in the algorithm to present those individuals that are most compatible with you.
Are people really on dating apps anymore, or is it like Instagram sliding in DMs and TikToks and Snapchats
are still very big?
Oh, I didn't know. I thought that people just sliding in the DMs was a thing now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's solely that way, right? So I tend to hear like it's a cross section of ways that people will usually engage in the dating world, right? So some of it may be through some of the apps, some of it may be through traditional connections, through people introducing, and then like you said, seeing somebody that they may be interested in who's a friend of a friend or something like that. And and reaching out to them. But I just wonder that if we're using the apps, if we're trusting the algorithms too much to really make the decision for us about a potential partner.
I mean, I would assume so. I mean, let's be real. We put our trust in a lot of AI at this point. So I would definitely assume that people would just be like, oh, well, I put this information in and they're supposed to find somebody who's compatible for me. So I'm going to swipe and I'm going to swipe and I'm going to swipe and I'm going to swipe. And that's the one. Mm-hmm. But I think that sometimes a lot of that time too, they may be swiping on people that really are compatible for them, but because they are not physically attracted to them, they may choose the person that isn't. So I think that's the thing too.
I do wonder though, when we start talking about dating, if I'm in the dating world, do I have a list of
criteria?
Like a list of attributes and characteristics.
Yes, I've seen a lot of.
Right, but do those match up? Right, like if I'm dating a person, does it match up? Okay, well, if it doesn't match up, why am I dating? Like, what made me decide to date that person when it doesn't match up?
So I'm seeing this a lot. I'm seeing this a lot in the social media spaces, right? And it's generally women doing this. So I want to make sure I preface it by saying this, but it's like this long list of things that they have that don't necessarily align with the men that they're trying to get. So like, I want a man who makes over $300,000 and he has to be 6 feet tall and like all these things, right? But then you look on the flip side and you only make $40,000 and you're like 5'2". But like, why does he need to be 6 feet tall if you're 5'2"? Like, I even see that when we're talking about on Pop the Balloon. Like I keep using that because I watch Pop the Balloon. I got to say this. I watch Pop the Balloon because I don't date. I'm not dating. I'm married. But it's a great way to look at it and how people think. But anyway, so like it'll be a guy on there who's like 6'1". And then it'll be a girl who comes on and she has on heels and she'd be like, well, he's too short. And he'll be like, well, how tall are you? She's like, I'm 5'9". I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But she was like, well, I have heels on. All right. But he's still 6'1". Like when you take the heels off, he's still drastically taller than you.
I mean, well, and I think that goes back to my original question about idolizing things like type and preference and whether or not those things really end up pushing away opportunities to meet people who may be more compatible with where we are in life, where we want to go in life, and who we are as an individual. And it's interesting because the Bible has more to say about love itself than who we love. Like it talks more about that. And I think when we understand more about how we are to love and how love is to be expressed and to be received and be shown, then what we're looking for in a partner really begins to change. Because does that person exhibit that kind of love? Mm-hmm. Because some of those other things potentially can change, go away, or not become as important. You know, when we're in the trenches of life, I don't know that it matters that you're 6'2".
Yeah.
Like facts. Like, I don't know if that really matters. Right?
I agree.
We're in the trenches of life and we're dealing with things. I don't know that those kinds of things really make a big difference. It's going to be, you know, your ability to, persevere, your ability to be present in a relationship, your ability to be able to show unconditional love, receive unconditional love. Those are the things that I think really matter in the trenches of life far more than all this other stuff. Not everybody wants to have a partner they look at and find attractive. Like, I don't want to take that away. But at the same time, I don't know if that has to be the end all be all for how you make the determination of whether or not you're going to date people.
Now, I know I talked to you about this before, but what about the money, the moolah, the green, right? If we're going through some struggles, you know, if you making over six figures, I'm happy, I'm good, you know.
I mean, I money is a poor motivator, right? It's a poor motivator because you usually never have enough of it. It doesn't matter. You usually don't have enough of it, and money doesn't necessarily mean that you're a better person, because we can like really look at society and see some people who have a lot of money and values, character, and morals completely absent. I mean, I think certainly having money can reduce some of the stressors of life, but that doesn't mean you don't have other stressors, you know. And I think sometimes, again, that's another thing that we potentially put up there to idolize, because anything could happen in somebody's life that changes the situation. You were making six figures last week. This week, your situation could be different and you're not making six figures anymore.
So should you have a prenup for those situations?
Oh, prenuptial agreements.
Yeah. You know, I had to throw it in there. I was going to sneak it in there somehow.
I don't have a biblical argument for prenuptial agreements, like to support the idea of prenuptial agreements, because the concept of a covenant marriage really is that we are all in. We are in this thing till death do us part. Divorce is not even a part of the discussion. Although I do know that, marriages can be broken. I do know that does happen. But the idea, the concept, the biblical concept of marriage is not to be contractual. To me, when we start talking about prenuptial agreements, then we move marriage from a covenantal space into a contractual. Right? You have to meet these particular obligations in order to remain in this relationship. Otherwise, you are in breach of contract. And the remedy is this. Whereas covenant doesn't work that way. We in this thing till we go in the ground.
And that's under the guise and understanding that the two people who are getting married are both believers, right?
That is correct.
Gotcha.
I cannot project that onto someone who's not.
I just want to make sure that there was clarity in that. All right, Phil?
Yeah.
But I do want to talk a little bit about how in dating sometimes do we take dating too seriously?
Facts.
Are our motives for dating are they always above board? Do we really have a clear motive? For example, some people only date to marry, and I don't. In that situation, I'm not always sure what that means. Does that mean that you will only go on a date or only date a person who is a potential life partner? And that seems like a huge, tall order. And in my mind, coffee is just coffee. If a person's going on a date, can we just first figure out if we can sit and have coffee and have a conversation before we even get to the point where we're talking about whether or not this person is a potential partner?
So, I'm sorry, Phil, you about to say something?
I was just going to say, whenever I was in college, I was like, okay, I date to marry. But it wasn't in that, and that's a great point. But for me, it was more so, okay, well, I'm not just going to, talk to 20 different women. I want to get to know them and take some time and slowly develop a relationship or a friendship like we talked about. So that was kind of like my goal. So for me, maybe I was just using the term wrong, but that's kind of how I looked at it as date to marry. Because I know people, I have close friends, former close friends that were just like, hey, I got this new woman and another woman after that. And it's just, you're not really satisfied. And, they just jump from relationship to relationship. And maybe they're not necessarily looking to become married or to ever even reach that point. It's more so just kind of a, attractive type thing. So that's kind of how I looked at it. But yeah.
I talked to 20 different women.
Is that a confession?
I was just joking, actually. I didn't talk to 20 different people.
Oh, no. Confession for a moment.
No, I just.
Your wife, she's gonna watch this. So.
Yeah. First of all, she knows I joke a lot, but second of all, she knows my past. She knows every single thing about my past. So, but no, I and that makes me think to myself, I have a lot of friends of mine, who are always like, there's pee in the dating pool. And I think a lot of it is because of the fact of what we're talking about is the fact that they're dating and they're trying to rush to that quote unquote finish line, right? There's this thing now, dating with intention. So if I'm going by date 3, I need to know is this heading towards marriage or not? That's usually what I'm hearing a lot of now. Or I don't go on no coffee date. Right? If you ain't, if you can't take me to Ruth Chris, right? I don't. Ruth Chris is amazing, by the way.
It's Cheesecake Factory.
Cheesecake Factory, whatever. Cheesecake Factory, Ruth Chris is all good. I'm just saying it's delicious.
That it is.
You got to get that chicken from Ruth Chris, by the way. But my point is that there's so many other things, like you said, so many other variables that's trying to rush to get to this finish line, and I don't even know if I like you. You know what I'm saying? So. I just like the way you look, but all right, can we actually talk? Can we converse? Can we hold a conversation? Do we have the same value? Do we even have the same spiritual beliefs? And we haven't even gotten to that point yet because you want to rush to the 5, 15, 30 steps ahead.
So question, how many coffee dates do you feel like you have to have? Obviously, I know it depends on a person, but how many coffee dates is more than enough to
determine what?
When you've had a caffeine fit, that's kind of when you know it's enough
if that
coffee.
person is at least, like you're not wasting time at that point. Like, oh yeah, like I have, well, I can't say who it is, but I have someone that I look at as a brother, and he will go on about 20 dates before he's like, okay, I'm going to ask this one to be my girlfriend. And I'm like, I mean, that's a lot of money that you're spending and a lot of time that you're, could be potentially wasting. It's not about money, but it's just like, after 20 dates, it's kind of like that's a little extreme, right? Like if you've been going on a date for 2 months, at what point is, okay, she is the one versus I'm still trying to figure it out?
I mean, I can tell you about my story, but I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer for that.
I would probably say that I think it's really about the quality of time that you spend with that person and getting to know that person. Mm-hmm. But one of the reasons why I asked the question or make the statement about dating, with the purpose of marriage, is one of the things that I think that dating provides us with the opportunity to do is it provides us an opportunity to really test our own theory about how we believe we connect with other people, how we believe that we can support, how we believe we communicate in up close personal relationships, how we resolve conflict in up personal, relationships. If we rush to the conclusion that, hey, this person is the person I'm going to marry, do we effectively know how to have a healthy emotional connection? Or now does this become the context of our experiment to be able to figure that out? And that can be painful. That can be painful to you and the other person when you discover in the midst of starting this relationship, being deep into it, that, I have some difficulty with emotional connections and remaining emotionally connected to a person or supporting a person emotionally. Or you're in a relationship and you realize, I'm the toxic one. Right. And so now my toxicity is spilling all over.
Some people don't realize it.
Yeah. Some people don't realize it. And so I think dating gives us the opportunity to really discover not only how to be in relationship with other people, but also discover things about ourselves and whether or not we really are ready to be a lifelong partner with somebody else. Not just if they're ready for us, but are we ready for them?
So speaking of this whole lifelong partner and all that kind of stuff, right? So me and him, we were having a conversation yesterday as we were coming back from an event that we were at. And I said something to him. I said, for me, it's impossible for me. I think it was me, you and Mike. I said it's impossible for me to live in a house with somebody and not be married and not want to, engage.
The shacking.
Yeah.
Shacking.
Cohabitation.
Is it possible to live in the same whereabouts with your partner? Or I don't want to say partner. The person you're dating and not be married and still be Christian?
Well, being a Christian is not determined by whether or not you live with somebody or not that you're in a relationship with.
That's fair.
Part.
That's fair.
The other part of that is it's not impossible, but I think it's improbable, right? Because you're putting yourself into a space of temptation. Mm-hmm. Not only that, you're also potentially impacting your witness to other people, right? So you're impacting your witness to other people, and whether you intend to or not, you're presenting yourself in a way where there appears to be a covenant that's not actually there. Mm-hmm. So if Philip and Tylin are married, so if I see Philip and Tylin out and they're talking about going home or whatever, they're going home together, that's his wife, that's her husband, right? So that's a covenantal relationship. That's what the Bible says. That's what I would potentially expect. It doesn't harm the witness. But if I'm cohabitating with somebody, then I think it does potentially bring harm to the witness, because I'm saying that I'm holding myself up as a follower of Christ, but I'm living in this way that gives the appearance, whether I intended to or not, it gives the appearance that I'm in a covenant relationship with this person when I'm not in a covenant relationship.
And before we continue on this conversation, I need to make it very clear, not only to you all, but also myself and everybody out there. I was shacking up. Okay. So I was guilty of it. So I'm not sitting here being accusatory of anybody.
Right.
I was bad. I ain't have all my temptations was out the window. So I'm just saying, so I just want to make people and let people know that, we all fall short.
But by the grace
of
God.
Yeah. Absolutely. I had to make an honest woman out of her. But no, I'm just so but no, I get everything that you're saying. So I knew for me, I can speak from a personal perspective. I knew for me it was difficult. And honestly, even walking into a church and not this church, because that didn't happen around this time, but just even walking in a church became difficult because I know that there was going to be the conversation of purity and all that kind of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So, I guess when I think about it, or when I go back, or even just trying to be somebody who has a testimony to give, I would earnestly say kind of steer away from it, because I know the difficulties that I had as a person who did it. So,
we're men. Men are men. That's the boys will be boys.
That has nothing to do with it. But because that has nothing to do with it at all.
So
we have been arguing about that boys will be boys thing for
it has definitely been an ongoing thing, and it hasn't stopped yet. Me and him still talk about it randomly.
Yes, we do. He sends me videos where he has to try to prove his point, and I'm like, once again, you're still still hitting past this point. Like
because I've been right on a multitude of times.
But when it comes to cohabitation, one thing I can say is that research indicates that it is not a predictor of long-term marriage or long-term lifelong partner relationships. Divorce rates among individuals who cohabitate is roughly the same as those who don't. So sometimes people have the idea that, hey, it gives us an opportunity to see if we are compatible, if this thing, our relationship will actually, work. But, what we tend to find in the space where I operate is, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, I said that yesterday when
you did.
Yeah, see, man, broken clock is right at least once.
You bring up the idea. You mentioned purity culture a little bit, and I know that purity culture in the church is usually big, and that's the idea or the concept of abstaining from sexual activity prior to marriage. And while I believe that as a biblical principle, one of the downsides of purity culture is it teaches people how to avoid sexual intimacy, but what it does not do is teach people how to have healthy emotional connection and emotional intimacy, how to build that in relationship. And we'll see sometimes, I think, in Christian circles, especially as you mature, and I don't know for either one of you what your story was as it relates to dating, where some parents are like, you cannot date, don't date. And one of the conversations that I'll have with parents sometimes is that if you're not walking with your children through that part of their life, then how do you expect them to be able to handle that? Like when they get, if you feel like, well, they need to wait till they're 18, 20 or whatever to do, well, then you're sitting this 20-year-old who has no frame of reference or experience for what it means to be in a relationship with someone. The only thing you've told them is steer clear of any physical intimacy, and now they have no idea what it means to be in an emotionally healthy, connected relationship with somebody else.
Well, so as a parent, there's two things I have against that, or not against that, but to say towards that. So the first thing is that from a church standpoint, do you think that we don't talk about dating enough? Right? We talk about, like, there are churches that directly always talk about the purity part, but very similar to what you said, we don't talk about the dating aspect and how to handle those emotional things since we're not physically intimate, right? So I think, so that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, as a parent, I look at it like I tell my kids now in this age, like, you're not dating. My kids are in middle school, so And I know we joke. I joke with my kids a lot. Like, you're not gonna date till you like 40. Like, but I also realize, that even when I was coming up, like, I dated in high school, right? So I'm always thinking about the mental maturity of it, in that capacity. Like, I don't, because I know my kids want to go to college, so I know that at some point they're going to be off on their own. And so I do want them to be strong enough to be able to handle certain things. But at this age, I don't want that to be a focal point, because I know sometimes, and that even happened when I was younger. I started dating, and then I became consumed with the girl.
Yeah, but see, I think that's where part of the problem lies, is that we do have to teach what it is to have balance, like, and what to do with what are very natural emotions about being drawn to or attracted to somebody or having a crush on somebody, and what they are to do with that, and how they are to respond, and how they should act and behave in those situations, versus saying, you don't need to worry about any of that. You need to put all that to the side, because they're still experiencing those feelings. They're still experiencing those emotions. And to add to what you said earlier, you're right. Like, the church doesn't do a great job about talking about dating or singleness. The church tends to treat being single as a holding pattern before you get married. And that ain't everybody's ministry, and that ain't everybody's story, right? That singleness is not a curse. Singleness is another way of existing and being, and you can be whole, and you can be happy, and you can have connection, and you can have emotionally healthy relationships with friends and family that make your cup feel completely full without being married. That's not what everybody wants or desires. And so the church has to do a better job of trying to present that the only way to be or exist is to be existing in a marriage or on your way to being married. So that's another separate thing. But I think as a parent, that's part of what I'm talking about. Like, we have a responsibility to walk through them with the crushes, and so that they know how to date and be in a situation where they're able to choose what's best for them.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad thing, right? But I don't want to put a business out there, but I know my kids have little crushes. Sure. They do, right? And so I know specifically with my son, I'm not going to talk about my daughter, because I know that my wife has conversations with my daughter. But what I tell, we have conversation. I was like, you think she cute? Yeah, I think she's cute. You like her? Yeah, she like you back? Yeah. I was like, all right, cool. Ain't no dating in this house though. So I do acknowledge the fact.
But what is he supposed to do with that?
I tell him, I'm like, you can like her, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But right now we're just not looking at dating. That's not where our focus is. Like, I tell him that, but he also knows that there's nothing wrong with liking the girl. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And I'm like, dude, if you like her, yeah, she like you, yeah. Even on Valentine's, I was like, so you get something from your girl, just like, So, but I also continuously say, like, I don't want them to focus on that. I don't want them to make that the main thing when they walk into the school.
But why would you assume they would?
Because I know what happened to me as a young person.
You.
I've seen it happen to a lot of people. So I guess what I'm saying is my experience is what helps me to be able to navigate how to be a parent.
I don't disagree, but it's more, I think it's kind of like, we still have to be prepared to walk with people through those situations, like walk with people as they navigate that, because there's something. I think the expectations that we have maybe are unfair in a sense, where it's like, okay, well, you're not supposed to date. You're not going to date until you get to be 17 or 18. And then when you get 17 or 18 and you first start dating, nobody has told you what healthy connection looks like. Nobody has told you how to establish healthy boundaries for yourself. Nobody has told you how to recognize when you're not being treated fairly or right in a romantic relationship.
I don't know if I don't know
if I may add, because I can speak from the kid that was told, hey, you can't date until you're 18, focus on your education. But for me as a man, I was raised by a single mom. So it's like, I can't go to my mom and say, hey, I like this girl and I have these certain feelings. Like, it just felt weird.
Right.
So it's kind of, I can understand it from both sides, but yeah, it just felt completely different.
But I get your point, right? Because I grew up with a single mom too, right? But I think mirroring those things as a 2-parent household, I think helps navigate that, right? And that's kind of the way that I look at it, right? So if I'm telling my son, we're not dating, but he also sees in the house how, I treat his mom, or how we know how to show love to one another, and or how we deal with conflict sometime. Or if I'm having a conversation with him and I say, hey man, this is, I know that, you may be thinking this or feeling this or whatever, but whenever you do get out there and start dating, whenever that is, look at how I treat your mother, or how we deal, or how we exist with one another, and how we show love to one another. So I think modeling that behavior in a household, specifically a 2-parent household, and that's not to knock a single parent household, because I grew up in one, but I think that kind of helps to navigate those emotions and those actions as well.
But at what age?
Wait a minute. Wait, he didn't have nothing to say. Wait a minute.
I hear what you're saying. I guess in my mind.
Oh, dang. See, I thought I got him. God, I was trying.
I'm just thinking about how prepared are we to really enter the dating world, right? Like, how prepared are we to enter into the dating world in hopes of establishing and having a relationship? At what point is the work being done, and in what ways is the work being done in order to prepare us for us? I get the modeling. I don't disagree. I get the examples. I don't disagree. I get the conversations. But along the way, like Philip was saying, he had these feelings. What do I do with those? Mm-hmm. Like, what is kind of the appropriate way to express or to not express? Like, what is appropriate to express? What's not appropriate to express? Because, and I'm speaking from my experience in terms of like sitting on the opposite side, having these conversations with people who are going through these things. Mm-hmm. It's often interesting to me that they oftentimes don't have positive experiences or examples to turn around and look at. They can look at examples of all the things that they don't want. They can see those in the people around them, but they oftentimes have not seen examples of what it is that they believe they want, what is really truly healthy, what is really truly the right thing. And so they've stumbled along the way in trying to figure that out the best they can figure that out. And I'm saying the church as a community is really good at telling you all the things that you shouldn't do. Mm-hmm. Like, we're excellent at that. But telling you, this is what it really looks like to have this kind of healthy dialogue, healthy relationship, healthy communication, healthy conflict resolution in this type of relationship.
Right. But what you're also talking about, again, is modeling, right? Modeling and examples, being around spaces that afford you the opportunity to be able to see those examples, which is literally very similar to the same thing that I was saying with my kids. Because the truth and the reality of the matter is, in all fairness, you're never really prepared, like, for dating. That's like parenthood. Like, we can talk about, we can go to the classes, we can do X, Y, and Z, but when you get the baby in your hand and you go through the experience, you're not really prepared for the all nights. You're not really prepared for the breath. You're not really prepared for the poops. You're just not. So I guess what I'm saying is that going into it at whatever age you are, whether you're young or whether you're older, whether it's modeled or not, you can get great modeling, and you can even apply that modeling in you dating. And it may not even be reciprocated from the person that you're dating well, and that may crush you. Because I can give you an example. Me growing up with my mother and seeing my mother go through what she went through, I was the super nice guy. So when I started dating, I would be what people call the simp nowadays. Like, I was the super sweet, hey, you need anything? But I didn't I didn't get that reciprocated on the other side. And so because of that, that made me change the way that I approached dating. And then I just became the I don't care kind of person. So I don't
from being friend zoned to actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because the nice guy is always friend zoned.
Right. Absolutely. So I don't think that you're ever really prepared. I think that our experience helps to be able to develop what dating looks like. And I think that along the way, those models that you're talking about, specifically from the church, those models and those examples help to really shape what we desire in the future, and can also put us in a position to be able to find who we're looking for in the space that we're actually going to find those examples.
So question, at what age is it okay to have those conversations as far as like, like you said, the dating scene, or just kind of not setting those expectations, but just giving them that conversation to talk? Because I didn't see it.
I think the conversation is appropriate when from a developmental standpoint, when people start first talking about having or being attracted to someone. So like, even just what does that mean to them, and what is it that's attractive to you, and helping them to understand the difference between what it means to be infatuated with someone. And just because you're attracted to someone doesn't necessarily mean, you find someone attractive doesn't mean that that's a person that you should like, or you do like. You can like something about a person. That doesn't mean you like everything about the person, or that you like the person enough to want to get to know them further, right? So being able to separate out those things versus, and I think that's part of what gets us into the trap of preference and type. I see the type, I see the preference, and then I'm like, okay, let me go date and figure out. Well, the preference and type is all great, but behind that may not be enough to even invest your time in, right? Because you have to invest your time to even figure that out. And I think when we start having those dialogues and those conversations, even at a young age, is really helpful for them to be able to sort through their own feelings. Because as someone who works with adolescents, they might like somebody this week, and then next week they literally don't like that person anymore, right? So like sorting through what's going on, like what's happening, like what this means. How do you figure out that you really like somebody beyond your initial attraction to them, or what you think you like about them? And I just think it's important. I think the example is important. I don't want to take away anything from that, but I think the conversation is important too. Yeah,
I mean, I don't disagree with the conversation, because it's very similar to what you said. My son was the same way. It was a girl that he liked in the classroom, and then I think it was about a month or so later, I don't like her no more. Yeah. Why? It's like, what happened? What'd she do? Did she say something? Did she slap you? Like, no, I just don't like her anymore. Okay, all right.
And to be able to tell them that's a normal experience.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that experience.
Absolutely.
Boys, well, I'm just kidding.
You are not going to do that again. You are not. I'll do this last one then. Have you ever had feelings and tried to make them seem like it was confirmation from God? So like, just to give an example, like, man, she's so fine. I know she's heaven sent.
Yeah, I can't say that I've done that.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, that's different. That's
She's
that's
so
definitely a Luke trait. So
no, that's a Michael Jackson trait. Till the angels know.
So no, I can't say that. I can say I've heard things like that where people will say, "I know this person was meant for me because they showed up on a Tuesday, and that Tuesday morning, I just happened to ask the Lord to send me somebody."
Yeah.
And they sent this person, and this person is my exact type. Like I've certainly.
I prayed for a woman who was wearing green, and she walked into my life.
She had on a green dress, and that was it.
Yeah.
I've certainly heard those type of things, but on the other side of it, I've heard people who are ending a relationship saying, "I thought this person was my person. They were my type, and I thought they had all these characteristics and attributes. I only found out later that they weren't this person, and so the relationship doesn't continue." Can people fake it? Do you meet a person's representative when you first meet them?
Absolutely.
In the dating world?
Absolutely. Yeah, I could definitely tell you that. I've done that quite a few times.
Met the representative?
Yeah, my representative. My name was Eric.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not even Julian. I was Eric.
Oh, you were out there.
Oh yeah, I was different.
Okay,
I was different.
Deceptive.
You know, when I met my wife, I knew that she was the one for me because we had a conversation just about God, and she was. She was. I mean, it was just like we could talk for hours about God and about our lives and everything. It just meshed, and I've had my fair share of being in relationships, especially throughout college. So that was just for me. Everybody's different. The example that you used about the "she's so fine" thing, that's, to me, that's more of a, if you're basing it solely off of looks, I don't think that relationship will last. And because I know guys that say that, like, oh, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and then 3 months later she's the most toxic woman that they've ever been with.
That's fair.
Because looks isn't everything. And I was going to say that earlier, like our bodies change. And from my understanding, as we all continue to get older, you have to take care of yourself. And I've seen some examples of some people that, might be considered incredible, handsome, beautiful, whatever, and then 5 years later they let themselves go, and they don't look the same. And
that's because they got married. They ain't got to work for it no more.
Wow. You still should.
No. That's the concept.
But you still should be attracted.
No, I agree. I'm just saying that is the concept for people. Like, hey, I already got my person, so shoot, I can let my belly hang, and So I mean,
300 pounds later,
yeah.
But I don't agree with that at all.
That's fair. I don't disagree with you at all.
I will say, Philip, I think it's interesting when you said you first met Talian and you had a conversation and you talked in depth about your relationship with God. Mm-hmm. What I heard from that was that you and Talian seemed to develop an emotional connection pretty early on, and that the emotional connection point was your relationship with God. So that for both of you was obviously very important, and so it's probably the thing that drew you together and made the connection something you want to continue to pursue.
Yeah, so she is my best friend, and
you got
had a
what? I'm saying this is nice. I think it's
but
nice.
I've been told that we have a different relationship because I tell her everything, and a lot of guys are like, "Hey, I can't do that," and it's
that's odd.
It's completely different.
I tell my wife everything, like literally
and he's
everything.
One of those guys, like you tell what? Everything?
That is not true. That's not true. What? At what point have I said that? I'll wait.
Exquisite.
What about exquisite?
We had
Philip got receipts.
When we had our conversation, it's like, wait, what? And then we're not even going to get into the discussion of the gamer tags for PlayStation.
No, I just think that's cute.
Things. No, you didn't say that.
It's cute. It's cute. I think it's funny. Well, no, I can tell you what I said. I'm just not going to say it because I don't want to get flagged. But I'll say it off here. But I do think it's cute. But I don't remember the conversation that exquisite. I can tell you that.
But to that point, I have had guys say, hey, well, I don't tell my wife everything. I think she doesn't need to know everything, especially about my past. And me, it's just different. Like I literally told Talon everything. And we have those conversations, and she truly is my best friend.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like I said, I tell my wife everything too. I mean, our meeting was a little different. I just thought she was fine. She was going in. Listen. She's light skinned.
Oh, here we go.
What? I'm gonna be honest. She's light skinned. She was going in the bodega. I was like, yo, I got to have
the bodega.
Yeah, on campus. It's called the bodega. The actual building was called the bodega. Like that's the name of it. And I was like, I got to have.
Sounds like a nightclub.
No, but I did work at a nightclub that she would frequent. But that's not the point. But actually, I'm gonna be honest. My biggest connection with her was when we went on our first date, and it was that way because she paid for it.
To Cheesecake Factory?
No, actually.
Bojangles.
No, dude. You wouldn't even know. It was called Ruby Tuesdays.
Ruby Tuesdays. Yes, I know.
You've heard of Ruby Tuesdays?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know.
There was one in Baton Rouge.
Oh, I had no idea. But yeah, she paid for the first date because I was a broke out-of-state college student and she was an in-state student, and I ain't have that type of money because I was paying for everything else, and so she paid for our first date.
Aw.
And she, very good. Yeah. And when I saw the way she ate, because any woman I had, no. No, what I'm saying is, no, let's be very fair. No, any woman that I had dated prior to her was like real dainty and they wanted to be cute. No, my wife was like, no, I'm going to eat this burger and I'm going to get the salad bar and I'm going to drink this drink. And she did not hold back. And from there, I was like, I'm sold. I'm sold. I don't need you to be cute on this food. I need you to go in. You see my stomach, we are going to match. And so after that, yeah.
Yeah, I had to call my wife out on that. We went to Wendy's. Wendy's is really like Cracker Barrel was our first date, but we went to Wendy's and I was like, let me get a biggie bag. And she told the lady, let me just get a 4-count chicken nugget. And I was like, woman, what are you doing? I know you hungry. But, you know, I mean, hey,
man, y'all connected over God. We connected over food. Yeah. It is what it is.
Well, I think both of you mentioned something that's important, like the friendship aspect of it, like how close in the connection that you share with your wife. Like my wife and I have been together over 30 years. And so like our friendship is very strong and we've built a friendship and maintained a friendship, you know, since we first started dating. And so that's something that I think that, again, is really important. You know, all those other things, they're important as well. But the thing that's enduring and lasting is what type of friendship you have. When we're in the trenches back to back in life, it's not going to be sweet nothings in my ear or anything like that, or in her ear. It's
Absolutely.
going to be like, what is this relationship so that we can weather whatever's happening. So I think that's a good quality or characteristic is, can I build a friendship with this person in terms of dating?
Absolutely.
Amen to that.
And that's actually a great area where we can wrap this all up and put it in a very, very beautiful bow. Listen, we actually want to hear everything and all of your thoughts inside of the comment section. You have any thoughts about what we talked about today? Any rebuttals or anything? Or you heard every single one of our stories about our wives. Do you have any stories? We want to see all of that inside of the comment section. Also, don't forget, again, to like, subscribe, get this information out. And remember, don't forget that this is not just a Sunday talk. This is an everyday walk, and we will see you all next time.